This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Setting up your Facebook Live. So it always says it's setting it up, and then all of a sudden we're live before it says we were live. So there's always a little bit of that. And then we usually like to stall for a minute to let people get on here.
I'm gonna use that stall moment to share it on my page.
To share what?
I'm gonna use that stall moment to share it the live on my page.
Cool.
There it is.
Can you see us? Are we there?
I saw myself dancing 30 seconds ago.
Mine's just frozen because I don't want to mess up the audio. All right. I'll comment. We're live.
I shared it.
Hopefully I'm meeting the community standards. All right, let's get started. Hello, everybody. Mike Swale, Katherine Lillie, Joel Farrell. We are back with our Facebook Live investment seminar series. This is only episode 2. We're still at the very, very beginning of this. And just as a reminder, if you don't remember or didn't catch the first round of this that we did, here's why we're here. We're here because Joel and I are investors. We're busy running our day jobs of this mortgage branch that you know and love. And we don't have a lot of time to go out and analyze deals for ourselves when we're looking at where we want to invest our money. And we wished that somebody would just highlight, hey, this is a good buy. This is an opportunity that's really out there. Here are the real numbers. Do you want it? And so we decided to try to create it. So here we are. It's evolved into a lot of different opportunities from us. And one of the opportunities that we have is comparing different types of deals, whether it's single family versus multifamily, whether it's 4 units versus 112 units, whether it's in Florida or Wisconsin, which apparently is a place, right?
Wisconsin is a place. Yeah, thanks for noticing.
So for episode 2, we're lucky enough to have Katherine Lillie on with us. And Katherine is an agent out of Eau Claire. And I believe you are entering your 3rd year in the industry, 01, 02, and now 03 or 23.
Yeah, yep, started in March of 2021, and now here we are today. So technically, my 2-year real anniversary is in 2 months.
All right, happy real anniversary.
And just so everyone knows, I met Katherine through a mutual friend. Hey, Lindsay Hardman out there. Thanks again.
Lindsay!
They met at a leadership conference in Texas, and they connected me to Katherine, and I actually had Katherine on my podcast, the Strive for 25 podcast, a while back, and just kind of chronicling her journey as an investor, her scaling the ranks and just catapulting to the top in terms of her production. And she's with the Dan Realty Group and helped that business scale and do business. And I think how many transactions did you close in 2022 on your own?
5 million, actually. No, I'm just kidding. All from start to March of 2021 to end of December 22, 75 transactions.
So anyway, that's a lot of transactions.
That's a hell of a start to your career, that's for sure.
Thank you. It's been insanely fun. And I think, Joel, you're probably going to say all the cool goals that I have set for myself.
Say that for later.
Quick note on who Lindsay is. So Lindsay, if you're watching, in 2 months, basically 60 days, it will be Joel and I's 6th anniversary at Fairway. And Lindsay was the first employee at Fairway that we met. She was literally the first Fairway person that we ever met. And we're about to be here for 6 years. And now Lindsay's moved on.
So cool. That's kind of interesting, because when I went to this conference in Dallas, I mean, I knew the person that was hosting it, but the first person I met as part of the conference was Lindsay.
Oh my God.
She picked me up from the airport and graced me with her presence, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. She has that. Yeah, she does that. So tell us, what else do you want us to know about yourself before we dive into the numbers here?
Okay, what's really important about Katherine? 1, I have a huge passion for coffee. I love coffee. I made a living off of coffee for a while. Second thing, love my cats. I have 2 really chunky, fluffy orange boys named Waylon and Willie. My husband is the best cat dad out there. Don't fight me. And what's one other fun thing about me? I don't know. I just really love, like, I love making impacts in people's lives. So when I was working in coffee, first person you see during the day and being a bright spot, all those cool things. And so being in real estate, I just have a way bigger impact that I can have on people. Yeah.
You're impacting people's financial lives in a good way.
Yeah, it's like purchasing real estate is one of the biggest things people do in their lives. So many people associate like getting married, having a kid, buying a house as like quote unquote adult things. And being an adult is for the birds, but it is a really cool thing to do. So
nice. And Joel, you were saying she has some big goals for this year.
I mean, I thought I heard you say you want to close 100 transactions in this calendar year, which is pretty amazing.
And I didn't stutter.
That's 2 a week. That's outstanding.
Thanks.
And if I understand correctly, you crossed the line into being an investor yourself this year, right?
Yeah, my husband and I bought a duplex, which brings us from one door being our primary residence to 3 total doors.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome. And that's what we're here to talk about. So, we're not, again, just up here talking about it. We're out there trying to do it as well. And that's what puts us in a good spot to kind of talk about this stuff. So what do you have for us today?
Hey, can I just hold on for 1 second? Because there may be people out there saying, where are we talking about Eau Claire? Where is Eau Claire? How do you spell it?
That's a good dessert, right?
Eau Claire is delicious.
Not as good as the tuna.
Yeah, not as delicious as our neighbor Altoona. Funny. No, Eau Claire is okay. So if you're looking at look at your hand like this, look at it. Okay, and stick your thumb out. Yep. I'm sorry. Flip it around. Okay, that's Wisconsin. So like your thumb is the peninsula, like right where your thumb and your hand meet. That's where Green Bay is. You guys all probably watched us totally bomb on Sunday night.
Did.
Sad day. Didn't cry. But I guess like right underneath your ring finger, that's where Eau Claire is.
Okay.
And so we're like an hour and a half, pretty much straight east of the Twin Cities. We're actually closer to the Twin Cities and the capital of Minnesota than the capital of Wisconsin, which is Madison. That's like 3.5 hours away. And the city of Eau Claire the population is 69,421. I feel like someone probably just added that one there so that nobody had a funny joke with the population. And that's Eau Claire.
So in order to meet your goal for next year, you're going to have to do a loan or do a transaction for every single person in the city of Eau Claire. Okay.
If you're a resident of the city of Eau Claire, please write this number down. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think this is a goal that I had, just maybe to put a little perspective behind it. I really love, if anyone has done the Strengths Finder quiz or Strengths Finder, one of my like top 5 things. One is competition, and then the other is achiever, which totally blend really well in this career. And so I just like to achieve like really dumb, stupid, crazy things. So I'm gonna hit 100 and then come right back down to real life. But I'm gonna do it.
I can see why you and Joel get along.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the properties. So what are the 2 that you have for us to look at today?
So here in the Eau Claire, Wisconsin area, we have kind of a city that blends into Eau Claire called Chippewa Falls. Smaller population of like 15,000, but very close together. It takes like 5 minutes to get from one to the other. So we have a 4-unit in Chippewa Falls.
Okay.
On the smaller side, more realistic for people like me who have one investment property and want to expand to the next one.
Sure.
And then the second property is a really big one for most of us, or a really small one to like the 1% out there. It's 2 8-units, so it's 16 units.
That's a lot of units.
It's a lot of units.
All right, so Katherine and I were chatting about this. I don't know if anybody out there has played the game Cash Flow from Robert Kiyosaki, based off of his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. when you play that game, you have to draw from one of two piles at the beginning of your turns. You have the big deals and the small deals pile, depending on how much cash you have. And for most of the people that we are doing business with on a daily basis, we're still drawing from that small deal pile, right? So this gives us two different options. This shows us what I wouldn't even call a 4-family small at this point. I would call that more of a moderate deal. And then we have a big deal. And how does the cash outlay and the cash return compare at those sort of ends of the spectrum? I think this is going to be a really interesting one. So why don't you pull up and share the first one, and I'll interrogate you here to try to get some information out of you so I can build our investment analysis while you're talking.
Who doesn't love a good interrogation? All right, here we go, guys. Here's
Mr.
my
Green,
screen. So this is an
in the
investment property calculator that my team and I put together.
Okay.
That's
So
us.
it looks like
Cool.
220 to 222 West Grand is our first one.
It is. So let's dive in. We pulled it up on Zillow. There's not a ton of pictures of the inside, but it gives us a decent idea. So this
Okay.
is the outside. It's really unique. I chose this property because it's the most recent multifamily to hit the market in our area.
So as a 4-unit, it's 2 buildings with 2 units in each building.
It is, because usually when you think of a 4-unit, you think of one building.
One building, yeah. And what is the monthly rent that we're going to get from all 4 units combined?
The monthly rent that we're going to get from all 4 units combined is $2,635.
All right, $2,635. Okay. And I usually try to be really conservative on these and get an average annual vacancy of 8%, meaning you lose 1 month per year per unit, which hopefully you don't. But as we're analyzing this, it makes a good conservative guess. So do you have the property taxes for this one as well?
I do. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so we can see it
Sure.
better. I actually like to be conservative as well. So I put 8% in here as a vacancy rate.
There you go.
Just like you did. Okay, so our property taxes, a little high, 4,508.
508. All right. And how much would you think for, go ahead.
On a monthly basis, that's 375.
Okay. And it looks like we got about 3,000 for insurance.
Yeah, I think that's a little high too, but that was quoted from the seller.
Okay.
Maybe they needed to shop around for an insurance agent and they just didn't want to, so they listed the property.
So they just guessed. Okay. And for this type of property in this area, what would you expect to pay for home maintenance? Are there any utilities that you're responsible for as the landlord? What's my monthly outlay going to be to keep this thing running?
Yeah, so this one specifically, the owner pays for the water sewer bill.
Okay.
And lawn care, snow removal. Everybody loves snow removal.
Yeah, I guess that's important.
So I added those costs together into utilities.
Okay.
Water, sewer, and the lawn care and the snow removal.
And you're budgeting another 3,000, it looks like, for maintenance stuff.
Yep, and then I did 10% of the rents that are received for maintenance reserves.
So if
The
you were to,
chances that you have to spend $264 every single month, very minimal, but the chances that within 1 year's time you might have a big purchase, that's pretty likely.
okay, so we're looking those two numbers together, maintenance and utilities, what is that, 455?
Yeah, I also put in a property management fee in here, and property managers in Wisconsin, or at least in Eau Claire, are fairly cheap. So like 6% of the rents you get is pretty standard. So
Okay.
when you include all these expenses, we're totaling $14,000 a year.
Okay.
And I guess I would just say the one caveat here is these are pretty conservative because you might not need a property manager, but maybe you just want to budget it in just in case. And so then that's an extra $2,000 a year that you're putting in your pocket.
All right. Let me go ahead and still the screen share here. And we can go over what I've got from the investment analysis side of things. So we are going to go over some of the assumptions. We're going to assume we're financing 80% of this because most of the people that we work with are going to need that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at how these numbers shake out long-term. So we're looking at 220 West Grand, 2635 in rent. We're going to be pretty conservative with annual rent increases of only 3% looking at this long-term, even though the national average is 8%. So again, we're trying to make it look honestly as bad as possible.
Yeah.
And then see what kind of deal it shakes out to be. So we've got annual, so 279 is what they're asking.
Yep.
Taxes are high at 4,500. Insurance is high. Oh, I'm sorry. This is monthly insurance. No wonder. Okay. So what was that monthly number? Was it 275?
Monthly number 375.
375 monthly. Okay. And
No, that's not right, is it? I thought it was 2,900 for annual.
Oh,
So
we're looking at it.
Yeah, so that would be
You're right.
250.
That's 249.
249. Okay. And we were pretty aggressive with the home maintenance on a property this size. Utilities were what?
I think we said 200, right? Like
Yeah, 250 for the utilities, or 191 for the utilities, and 10% for the maintenance reserve.
Correct.
That's pretty aggressive. Let's cut that maintenance reserve in half, and let's go 190 plus 125. So let's cut this down to about 3. Let's do 350 to just remain conservative. All right, and we're going to do a management fee of 6% of monthly rent. And with the loan.
So question for you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Do you manage your property on your own, or do you have a?
I manage my property on my own.
Okay.
I did that one because I could still cash flow with a property manager. So I did budget that in when we purchased the property, but also I wanted to learn that side of things. And in the future, probably 5-10 years down the road, property management will probably be part of our real estate business at Dan Realty Group. So me having a little bit of knowledge, whether I work heavily in the property management side or not, is beneficial.
So let's look at it both ways real quick. It looks like at the asking price, because of the costs associated with it, and because we're financing here and at current interest rates, we're actually at the asking price. We're at negative 231 a month negative cash flow. 10-year cumulative cash flow is positive, but as you can see from the estimated annual cash flow, we start negative and we don't hit the positive until year 5. Over time, with the money going out and rental income and expenses, it looks like our total return is, where is that, $5,000 total annual cash flow in year 10.
4,800.
Appreciation gain $120,000. Amortization gain, meaning the loan being paid down over the 10 years, we're gaining $30,000 making those payments. And total rental income plus appreciation minus expenses equals $127,000 in profit after you minus the cost to sell in 10 years and everything else along the way. Meaning if you put in $55,000, $56,000, which is how much cash it's going to take this one down today, and you pull out $127,000 in 10 years, your ROI is 229, but your average annual compound return is 12.6%, which is not terrible. But most people don't like that we're not going to cash flow for the first 4 years, and your overall ROI is negative until year 3, and then you get a pretty good jump in year 3.
Most people don't like simply breaking even, let alone, in a sense, losing money the first 4 years.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, and this, it's funny, I mentioned the cash flow game already, and this comes up in the cash flow game as well. Like, why would you ever buy a negative cash flow property? And if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would have told you I wouldn't have. And I probably missed some opportunities. And I'm not saying that this is the opportunity, but there are reasons that it can make sense to buy a negative cash flow property. Keep in mind, we're assuming today's interest rates and today's purchase price.
Yep.
So this one starts to look different if you can say, let's say it sits and you're able to pick it up for 260, get a little bit better. And let's say that you decide to self-manage. And what kind of a big difference does that make once we lower our loan amount to 20% down of the new terms at today's interest rates, roughly? And all of a sudden your cash flow flips from being as positive as it was negative, just changing you're buying it for $20,000 less and self-managing now. And all of a sudden, when you get down to the overall return numbers, you start profiting a large amount. So
There, I've got another one for you, Mike.
go ahead.
What if we raise rents to be a little closer to the higher end of the rental market versus on the lower end of the rental market?
Sure. So we've been conservative with monthly rents, and we've been conservative also with the annual increases. So what if we now, what do you think? Let's not go to the top end. Let's go to the mid-range. Mid-range, optimistically reasonable. What do you think you could raise rents to?
So this property has 2 units that are 1 bedrooms and 2 units that are 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
So for being, a little bit more aggressive, but not balls to the walls,
Mhm.
I would say 700 a month for the 1 bedrooms and 900 a month for the 2 bedrooms.
So 3,200.
900 plus 900 plus 700 plus 700 is 3,200.
So 3,200, and then instead of being, a third of the national renewal rate, let's be half of the national renewal rate. And then let's say you aren't worst case scenario on vacancy, you're only half of worst case scenario, which is still not roses and sunshine. It's still a 4% vacancy. Now all of a sudden your negative 200 monthly cash flow becomes positive 800. And then, what if you have the opportunity to refinance for 2% lower in 6 months and you still keep the property for 10 years? How does that affect things? And now all of a sudden you're at 1,100 a month cash flow. So all of these numbers can change and they all go into the equation. And so simply changing some of our assumptions, and we don't know what reality is going to be, we have to make our best guess. But when you look at it ultra conservative, you're making 13% year over year in the long term if you can survive the negative cash flow of the first 3 or 4 years. If things go really, really well for you, it could be, $1,100 a month cash flow, and $1,100 a month cash flow off of a, sub $300,000 purchase price is bonkers. Video game numbers, I like to call them. That's sort of better than can be expected with an average annual rate of 22%. Mm-hmm. So a few different ways you can look at this. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you grade this one in terms of opportunity? If you have limited cash dollars and you've got to put it towards an opportunity, and you see this deal, knowing the range of assumptions we can make, what are you grading this one in terms of how good of an opportunity it is?
That's tough. I think if it, and I would have to, actually tour this property and do a little bit more research, but if
Sure.
It was realistic to at the very least break even and simply not lose money, then I would put this probably as like a B minus, a B kind of spot, because and that maybe is more personal for me because I see the long-term appreciation plays.
Yeah. And one of the things we didn't ask is this rent ready today, or are we going to have to do anything, invest any money in this up front in order to get it rent ready?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good question. And I mean, we could pop back and look at the 3 pictures that they have of the interior
Sure.
of the property. And that would definitely show us a little bit. We've got the outsides. Winter never bodes well for how beautiful the homes look. But
it's realistic.
4 pictures, sorry. We've got 4 pictures of the inside, and I can't say this is just beautiful new construction, but I also don't look at this and think that it needs to be renovated right off the bat. Yeah,
it probably, in reality, probably takes for 8 units, you're probably looking at 5,000 to 10,000, from worth of turnover expenses with 8 units. So that needs to be factored in as well. So we were already looking at about $60,000 out of pocket. So call it 70 grand out of pocket to get this property up and running. As compared to the
Mike,
next property that you have.
Hey, Mike. So if we're talking 10, 20, right, then we're talking maybe spoof it up a little bit, paint, maybe some updated countertops. I'm not sure, a couple grand each unit. I mean, then that will put us on trajectory to be able to increase rents quicker, right?
Mhm.
So that first scenario versus the second scenario are quite different.
Oh, they were very different. And so I'm
Yeah,
giving it a 2021 C, but a 2023 B, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
So I would have been a lot less interested in this deal at what I would have had to pay for it in 2021. But with 2023 supply and demand, how long has this been on the market?
like 24 hours.
So this is brand new on the market. So I would
Brand
probably
new.
say at 280, it starts to be a little bit of a stretch for me. But if it sits for 10 days and I can maybe get 2% back off of closing, or I can negotiate it down to 275 or 270, all of a sudden it piques my interest, especially again, when we look at those long-term numbers. So
Yep.
we're going to run out of time here. So we need to juxtapose this against the big deal card that we drew.
Hey, Mike,
16 unit opportunity.
the one thing so I feel like for the people out there that are listening to this, they're probably going to be more apt to purchase something as a 4-unit, maybe on their first time or second time around, rather than the 8-unit. So I feel like we could probably skim through the bigger one and get to the bottom line details. But when you talk about price versus the closing cost, I think it'd be helpful for some people out there to be able to look at, hey, if your price is at this point, and no closing help, what does the numbers look like versus, instead of lowering the price, adding it into the 2% credit.
Yeah, good reminders. If you're using conventional financing and you're doing an investment property loan, not a primary residence, an investment property loan, not, with a 4-family, you have the additional capability of buying it as a primary residence if you're going to live in one of the units. And then instead of all of it being expense, you actually get to make money off of your primary residence, which is a crazy, crazy deal. And then you have different, what you call interested party contributions, meaning you can ask for more from the seller. But if you're talking about buying a home as an investment property and you're using conventional financing, you're capped at only 2%. That's the most you can ask the seller for. And closing costs are going to vary greatly county to county, state to state, of all the different places we do business in. Missouri, for example, I don't know a lot about Wisconsin, so Katherine, you're gonna have to help me out there. But Missouri closing costs are relatively inexpensive. I'm probably halfway there if I get a 2% credit. Some of the other places, California, Maryland, that we do business, we're definitely not halfway there if we get a 2% credit.
Definitely closer to Missouri than California.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason we would get the credit versus the price reduction is because we're looking at usually cash on cash as one of our primary evaluation methods. So we're trying to limit our cash out of pocket more so than we're trying to reduce the price.
And one way that I think about it too, let's say that you did have a really nice chunk of change. Let's say you had $100,000 that you decided, okay, how am I going to invest this? You could invest all $100,000 in one property, or maybe you could leverage that a little bit and buy 2 to 3 properties by splitting that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I look at all the time, right? Yeah. Do I want a $200,000 house or do I want 2 $100,000 houses?
Exactly,
to me,
yeah.
What does that $200,000 house rent for? And what do those 2 100s rent for, right? Because sometimes there's a little bit of a law of diminishing returns the higher up you go in sales price. So
absolutely.
All valid concepts that we could spend a lot of time on, but I don't want to, again, run out of time here. So let's breeze through this bigger opportunity. And then of course, if people want to know more, how do they get a hold of you? If they want to take this bad boy down.
781-9248. And any social media ever.
Yeah, you're tagged in all of the posts about this. So
yeah, if you can't find me, I think that's on you. Okay, so looking at this really big property, even if we're at the smaller stages of having 0 investment properties to 2 or 3 investment properties, if we're on the smaller scale, I think it's super fun to look at these because it helps you see the future and maybe figure out, yeah, this is something I'm super interested in, or no, I'm going in a different direction. But this sale closed, no longer on the market. It's 2 8 units. So it's 16 units total. This is the first one, and here's the second one. And let's dive into the numbers.
All right. What do you think it's going to rent for?
I have what it was renting for when it was purchased and what I think market rents could rent for. So it
Okay.
was purchased for 1.45 million.
Okay.
And the rents for all 16 units were 650 each. So that's $10,400.
Okay. And you think they're going in there and raising rents as we speak?
There's no pictures of the insides. So we could do two different examples. One, if we need to rehab a little bit and then raise rents, or two, it's simply under market value and we can raise rents immediately.
Okay.
So you could decide whichever one you want to go down.
Let's start with what it was currently rented for. So we've got that in there. We've got property taxes of $76.17 per year.
Yep.
Monthly home insurance estimate was $416, called $417. No association fees. And then by the way, I forgot to mention, but we're accounting for not only rent increases, but also property tax increases as time goes on. So just goes to the conservativeness of this. Monthly home maintenance reserve plus utilities, $780 a month.
Yeah, I did 10% on that maintenance reserve again. And in this one, there's no hallway. So there's no just like general electricity. All of the utilities are on the tenants.
Okay.
So everything's separately metered. Everything's great.
I'm going to peel that back and do 8% on the maintenance reserve. Just to
Make it less of a scary number.
Yeah. Just because I think you get a little bit of economy of scale in a property this size.
Absolutely you do. Yep. And then I did 6% for property management fees.
I'm also going to ask for a higher rate on this. And we don't know, this would be a commercial loan, so we're not quoting conventional loan rates on this.
Yeah. So from the financing side, Mike, I mean, you're talking on this size of a deal, the typical commercial loan is going to be what, a 5-year balloon, 20-year AM. And they're going, probably in the 7.5 range, give or take.
Yeah, I went ahead and threw it at 8% just to be safe. Okay.
Any numbers you need from me?
I think that covers
So
it.
do
Right?
we-
So
do
what
we
are you
need-
coming up
do we
with? Are you
need-
coming up with a cap rate of 6?
Yep.
Do we need trash and
That
sewer?
is on the tenants.
Well, that's on the tenants.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
All right. Let me steal the share. And there was no pictures, you said? I saw the
Just on the
exterior.
outside. We don't know what the insides look like.
Okay. So this is another one that looks, unless I've missed something here, we are negative substantially in year one cash flow. Over 10 years, you catch up. Cash on cash isn't terrible at 18%, but initially, we're having to subsidize this by $1,000 a month. And we're gaining a crap load of appreciation, even at a tiny appreciation rate, because we put a lot of money into this. We're looking at 142 in amortization, almost 600 in appreciation. So overall profit over 10 years of 628,000. And your down payment plus.
Can you scroll up to your expenses? Because I've got
I did throw the 6% management fee in here too.
yeah. Interesting. I have cash flow at a positive 1,000 in my spreadsheet.
All right. So did you do 8% vacancy?
I did, and I'm just switching the interest rate to 8% as well.
So did you use future rents or did you use the 1040?
I used the 1040, but I had a different interest rate in, and that changed it. So now I'm at a negative 852 per month.
Okay.
And this is a 20
Taxes 7617, insurance 417.
Nope, that was the difference was the interest rate.
Okay. Yeah, interest rate makes a big difference. And that's why the hope that rates come down and you have the ability to refinance is an important factor of this, especially long term. Nobody can say that they're going to be down in 90 days or 6 months, but over time, we're at above average over the last 20 years. And so you would think you'd get some sort of reprieve in there at some point.
Yep.
So we're negative for the first few years. Again, total return is down in the 12s, annualized. ROI is 216 because your cash outlay, including closing costs, was almost 300,000. So our first deal, we can get in it for 60 to 70. This deal, we need 300 in cash to take down. So now, again, that's sort of worst case. So now let's go through real quick. We're kind of above our time here, but let's just breeze through what you think these units can rent for, and let's change some assumptions and see what happens.
Okay, because it's an apartment building, I went a little conservative on what I think raising rents could be versus like a duplex.
Fair.
So if we did a 2-bedroom unit for $850 a month times 16 units, that's 13,600. So that gives us $3,200 more.
Yeah, that flips it from a negative number to a positive number by almost the same amount.
Yep.
And then let's say you peel back vacancies to only, once every, and basically what 4% means is that every 2 years, each tenant moves out. So you're turning over each unit once every 2 years, once every 1 year, and 2 times every 3 years. These are these assumptions. So let's say you don't have as much vacancy. Let's say you can increase to market rent. And then let's say you can refinance at some point. Actually, you're going to have to refinance at some point because of the way most commercial loans work. Let's say your next renewal, you get down to the 6% range, and you can see changing these assumptions, having some things go your way. What is that? Triple, double, 2.5 times your profit?
Yeah, well, you purchased at 1.4, so
yeah, your profit is almost as much as you bought the thing for at the end of 10 years. So vastly different number, even though your ROI is negative in the first year because that's when you paid all your closing costs. But by year 2, you're making.
And the closing cost number, I think I said 43,000.
Yeah,
that seems a little high.
It does. We don't have time to scrutinize it. So just being conservative, still having the numbers work out this well. Again, the thing is we've got a wide range of assumptions. So you have to figure out, okay, what is it going to be for this property?
Yep.
So we pulled a big deal card. We pulled a small deal card, gave us a lot to think about. Our friends know how to get a hold of you since we've tagged you in Facebook. Any closing remarks?
I guess one question for both of you guys, just personally, let's say like for the first deal you were able to do that yourself. Let's say you just like had $60,000 cash.
Mm-hmm.
Would you personally prefer to invest in that first option, or would you find a couple partners and invest in that second option under the assumption you only have $60,000 to spend?
It's a good question. For me,
yeah,
it depends on the deal. So I'm going to answer the small one.
Yeah.
If I had 60,000, I would go in on that one myself. But that's not to say I only want to do things myself and I refuse to partner. It just depends on the deal. If the second deal was more of a no-brainer, given the range of assumptions, and I had the partners that had the cash and I wanted to deal with, a couple other people, then I might consider it. But I would say in this case, I would take the smaller deal.
Yeah.
Joel?
What about you, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you talk about bringing in additional people, it really comes down to a time thing. It takes more time to figure out the logistics, more time to figure out the LLC, and even if you get into syndications and whatnot, and then you're gonna also have to be on the same page along the way in terms of updates and maintenance and managing and exit strategy and pivoting. And
let me add another wrinkle into that, because here's another thing. Here's another reason it depends. My wife and I own some rental properties. Joel and I own some rental properties together. Joel and I and some other partners are working on a project in Florida. Like, how many people are you already partnering with? And how many new people are you introducing into the mix? So for me at this point, if I didn't have all of that other stuff going on with other people, then I might have more appetite for partnering. Let me ask you the other question though, the opposite question. If you had $300,000, would you take deal number 2, or would you take deal number 1 and save that other 240 for future use? Or would you do neither?
If we were analyzing both of them as best case scenario, I would go for the bigger property.
Yeah. At best case scenario, the bigger one's a no-brainer.
Right. But generally, I probably would leverage that money and purchase as many of the smaller ones as I could.
Fair.
I think there's pros and cons to both, because some people would rather have you know, if you are working with 16 doors and they're all right next to each other, doesn't that just seem a little bit more efficient?
It does, because my argument would be, well, for somebody like you, I'm in Missouri/California/Florida. I'm not in Eau Claire. And so I need a property manager if I'm going to take that down. But for somebody like you, can you save yourself 6%? Because it's a lot easier managing one apartment complex than a collection of different,
Mhm.
single family. So you may be able to leverage your dollars even farther by self-managing there.
Yeah, but then you go on the other side, what would my net worth look like if I owned 10 duplexes versus one apartment complex?
Mhm.
Okay, look at all sides.
Yeah. And a lot of people have different preferences.
Yeah.
For sure.
If anyone's still listening to us, drop your thoughts on that in the comments. What would you do? Would you partner with someone if you only had 60,000, or if you had 300, which deal would you go for, and so on and so forth?
That's a fantastic point. Would love to hear from people. And Catherine, would love to hear from you. If you see another one of those 14 units hit the market, let us know.
Usually they don't hit the market. That one was entered into the MLS for comp purposes only. We see
Yeah,
those.
just to record the off.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate the whole conversation.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Really cool to be able to see those two scenarios side by side. They're obviously
Yeah,
different
I really
size.
like comparing
Yeah.
I guess a more normal one, and then one that seems like a big stretch, but you do things right and you learn, and you make mistakes and you learn, and then it's not a big stretch anymore.
Hey, in order to win the game of cash flow, you run out of patience pulling only small deals. Eventually, you got to reach into that big deal deck. It's a
Yeah.
good reminder. There's some lesson for life in there somewhere. All right.
Growth comes not in the comfort zone.
Heck, that's for damn sure. All right, my friends, thank you so much. I'm going to kill the recording and the live, and then we can
All right.
chat. One moment.